coming back to hockey. You're one of the moms in the league, one of the few new moms as well. What were some of the thoughts that you had, and what ultimately made you sign off with Naden to come back to Beauts Nation?
Yeah, so it actually was a pretty long process. When Mandy was still the manager earlier, I think it was in the summer, I was actually still pregnant, and I texted her and I was like, I think I want to come back. But, I didn't know how the birthing experience would be and like recovery and whatnot. So, once I had the baby, I had an unplanned C-section. So I was talking to Nate about, um, I guess, just the process of coming back and when the league going to start and all that information, because everything was still really up in the air. We didn't know when the season was going to happen, how it was going to happen, and all that information. So, um, he stated that he thought it was going to start the start of January. So I said, okay, I'm not going to be able to be ready by then because unplanned C-section, 3 months of recovery till you can work out. So that put me to December. So definitely not enough time to get in shape. So that was a no. And then the bubble came about, and that was pretty exciting because he said it would start the end of January, which in my head I was like, okay, I got a month to basically sit on the bike 5 days a week and hope to get my legs and cardio in shape after just having a baby. So I definitely put in a lot of work once I found out that there was a bubble and that I wanted to take the opportunity to get back to hockey and not take too long off, especially that I've been off for already a year because I was pregnant. But yeah, that was basically my decision and the process to it.
Yeah, and a lot of people obviously have been talking to you about motherhood and being a mom, but this isn't really new to sports. It definitely, though, I'm sure, is an adjustment. How has it been actually playing games?
Um, it's been fun, very challenging. I'm definitely not where I was last year, which is okay. I'm trying to be easy on myself because I am just back from, having a baby. So I definitely have to take it easy on myself and try not to be too hard on myself. But it's been so much fun being back with teammates. I've been pretty isolated since March because obviously I was pregnant, so I was too scared to be around people. I didn't know the effects of the coronavirus on the fetus and the baby, especially it was so early on. So I just was very isolated at home with my family. So just being around friends and stuff now is just like awesome.
The majority of our conversation, we do want to talk a little bit about your family and your upbringing and that experience that you bring to hockey. So why don't we start there, Brooke?
Okay.
I wanted to leave this as an open-ended question, but Brooke, tell us where you're from.
So I'm from Kanien'kehá. It's a reservation just outside of Montreal. I did grow up there, and I started in school just learning Kanien'kehá, which is a native language for the reservation. And I only learned Mohawk from grade till up to grade 6. So at home I was speaking English, but at school I was speaking, reading, and writing in Mohawk. So I only started to learn English in grade 7 for reading and writing. So that was pretty challenging, the transition from a Mohawk immersion school to English and French. So I think that, I guess, was just something I had to take on, you know. But it was definitely a different experience, I think, than most people just with that transition alone. Um, I definitely was more into like our traditional experiences and ceremonies when I was younger, just because I did live on the reservation. And so going to Longhouse and stuff like that, which is where our ceremonies are held on the reserve. But I did move away when I was 13, or I think I was 14 actually. But I moved to Ontario for prep school. And I thought that was when I became more distant from Longhouse and ceremonies. I felt like I didn't have like a big friend group, which I think would have made me more comfortable to also attend ceremonies. So I think that definitely affected like me staying within the culture more and stuff like that. So that was kind of my upbringing.
I know enough history to know that there are, especially in certain provinces, there's a focus to speak a certain language, and that's essentially institutionalized. But I
Yeah.
also know that similarly to other groups that we've seen where I'm from in the United States, that there's also dissuading groups from speaking their language that is from their culture,
Mhm.
and that can really impact a lot of people. And I wonder if you can maybe take us through what that experience was like, because at a young age you were learning multiple languages, but then again had to integrate, as some would say, to be able to then learn an additional language. So what does that tell you about the history of your community and the area in Canada that you were growing up in?
Yeah. So there a lot of my childhood I actually don't remember. I like hear stories from like my auntie who I spoke the language with, and she was like my Kanien'kehá teacher, and I just spent a lot of time with her, and she was the person in my family who I would speak Kanien'kehá to because she was basically one of the only ones who did speak. My dad ended up going to I think it's a 2-year Mohawk program that they have for adults in our community, but I never ended up speaking to him in Kanien'kehá. So I think that also influenced me losing the language really quick, is me separating from that person that I was able to talk to, and also school. Um, so it was definitely difficult. And then obviously the province of Quebec is all French. So once you leave the reserve, everything is French. I still go in grocery stores or like road signs, and like it's all French, and I'm like, I don't even know what that means. So that's definitely difficult. I think a lot of people on our reserve they want to learn the language, but they also know that if they want to work outside of the reserve, they need to know French. So it's definitely, I mean, it's manageable. You can learn more than one language, but it's definitely difficult. I know personally, like, I was in French for 3 years, and I know, like, hi, bye, just the simple things. So definitely, I think takes a lot of effort to learn basically 3 different languages if you want to be English, Kanien'kehá, and French. So, but if you want to stay on the reserve, then, I mean, you can learn Kanien'kehá and English, and then it'll be okay. But obviously, we're in Quebec, so it's kind of, if you know what you want to do with your life, then it might be easier to make that decision. But yeah.
We're having conversations in the world now about people opening up to having conversations about culture, about race, and about racism. Brooke, I wanted to use that to talk a little bit more about now where you are with the National Women's Hockey League. And again, you've played 2 games, but you are one of the handful of athletes that has been kneeling during the national anthems. And there's now a Canadian team. So for some games, we hear both the Canadian national anthem and the United States Star Spangled Banner. I just want to first get your reaction to, again, that idea of having to code switch, even in the context of talking about racism, and what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, good question. Um, in my own personal experience, I haven't felt that I've ever gone into a room and experienced that like uneasy feeling of like, oh, I stand out, or like, um, oh, what do they think about how I look, or anything like that. So I'm grateful for that hasn't personally happened to me. I know it's happened to a lot of people. My boyfriend is black, so I know a lot of experiences from him, and like being racially profiled for being pulled over for driving a nice car, and now we have a child together, so you can imagine what he looks like and what he is going to look like, and that's just something that I don't want him ever experiencing, and to like for him to ever feel fear to be anywhere. He should be accepted no matter where he is, anywhere in this world. And I think that should be how everyone feels, no matter what you look like or who you identify as. It's crazy that it's 2021 and we have to have this conversation.
You talked about your family, your immediate family, the family that you're growing with your boyfriend and your son. I wonder if now the reality of being a parent and raising a child has impacted, maybe you talked about that anxiety, thinking about thinking about racism and the national anthem in college. Do you think that starting a family and having that as a very real and present reality has maybe changed how you perceive, how you want to talk about and act upon racism?
Yeah, I think it has for sure. I think since I started dating my boyfriend, actually, I started to learn a lot more from him for sure. He comes from a different background and a different area of living. He's from Maine, and Maine is predominantly white, and he's black. So he has a lot of experience, and he shared basically all of his experiences with me. And so I think I learned a lot from him, and it made me more aware of all the situations and all the hectic that is going on in the country. And so I think definitely starting a family with him made me more aware and that I just need to be out of my comfort zone about this.
Given that's your, again, your intimate and immediate family experience, Brooke, when having conversations about racism, what would you like to see happen from here? You and other players are kneeling. There's conversations happening at the NWHLPA, conversations like the one you and I are having. But what will progress look like if you had to outline it?
Oh,
Big
that's a
question.
big question. Yeah. Um, um, I think there's still a lot of work to do. Um, oh my gosh, where do you even start on this question? Um, I think it starts with education. I think I know history is history, but I think it's important for people to understand the history of marginalized groups, to understand what people of color, what Black people, what Indigenous people all went through to be where we are now. Um, for Indigenous people, we're on little reserves separated by, you know, across the country. And then there's some reserves who are very isolated and an hour away from just any other community. So you can imagine how that is. Um, so I think it's starting with education and really educating people on history and what has happened in this country. And then moving forward from that and being able to accept everyone. There's no there's no need to marginalize people anymore. And I think it starts within communities where communities need help. I think that there are Indigenous communities, Black communities that aren't doing well. And there's some Indigenous communities who don't have drinkable water and who have toxic water that they're not able to drink or shower in. Like, it's just crazy. So I think it starts with history and then helping the communities and then everyone just accepting one another.